Do I need to do this? Do I need to make a blueprint, right? A plan, little by little to get there. Like, it ain't gonna all happen overnight.
The best way I put it is I would rather not be liked for my authentic self than not be liked for trying to be the person you think.
Sometimes the stuff that sucks, you gotta run straight in.
You just gotta go to it.
Like just right in.
If you stop differentiating, you die.
I want them to be able to support themselves, support their family. I want them to be great human beings at the end of the day.
I want to be able to say, like, okay, this is my legacy. I helped make a difference in this young man's life.
If you're poor, you don't have to stay poor.
Right.
All right. Well, I am Derek Lyons, your host of the Blueprint Banner podcast. And with me today is Christie Steiger, the CEO and founder of Innovative Wellness. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun conversation. We'll get to learn a little bit about what it is that you guys do at Innovative. I want to touch on that. But then what I really want to find out about is essentially behind the business. Obviously, you have clients that come in and you're helping them, but sort of like what made you fall in love with this career path, like why you chose it. And it'd just be interesting to hear a little bit more about that. So first of all, if you want to just give us like a glimpse of if somebody walks into Innovative Wellness right now, like what can they expect or what are they looking for type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a root cause clinic. We want to help people figure out what's going on, how they got to where they are. So one of the reasons that Innovative Wellness exists is because I got sick myself.
Okay.
And so no one could really help me. We didn't have the resources 10 years ago. There was really no functional medicine. Social media was not the way that it is today. And every single doctor's appointment, I left with a new medication and literally felt worse within a day of taking it. And so I went on this journey of trying to discover how to heal myself, And for me, it was a huge part of my faith because when you're so sick, you can't buy your way out of that.
Right.
There's nothing you can do. I didn't understand anything the doctors were telling me. And so at Innovative Wellness, what we want to create for people is a place of hope, when they're sick and really starting to understand how did I get here? Because otherwise you live in this state of fear. Like, what if it happens again?
Right.
How did I get here?
Yeah.
And you come in with labs and you're like, I don't feel fine, but everyone says I'm fine. And so we really walk through with everyone. This is what a comprehensive panel looks like. This is why we start here.
Yeah. So you hear it all the time where somebody will, not all the time, but I mean, if you're paying attention to the medical industry in general or like start paying attention to friends that have different things going on, because as humans, like we all have something to a certain extent. But you hear it all the time where somebody will be getting treated for something like an illness of whatever. And then all of a sudden there will be a byproduct of like something else going on that now they have to deal with. Like, I know several people and I'm actually one myself. I mean, being on Solera, one of the number one things is like joints and it just gets dubbed as an autoimmune disease. You get put on this medication, it has all these side effects. And then before too long, like you're getting treated for the symptoms of whatever you have. But now all of a sudden you're going to start running into all these other problems. And it's like, well, is there more to understand here or not? And is that maybe not that case specific, but is that essentially like what you're talking about by finding the root of those things?
Yeah. I mean, autoimmune is essentially your own body turning on itself because it feels like that's the best way to create homeostasis. So I just am under the belief that God didn't create our bodies to turn on themselves for no reason.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out like what caused your body to get out of homeostasis. Was it a level of toxicity, stress, diet, lifestyle? Nutrients play. People don't realize that our body is an entire system. And so you need nutrients to run the system. It's like trying to have a car run without gas. And so really looking at like, how does this part of the system work? And is there anything lacking?
Or like if a car's supposed to run off gas and instead you just put pure oil into it, like is that going to work?
Terrible.
Yeah.
No.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you have people that come in with those sort of autoimmune things that are just like, hey, like, yeah. So do you have any specific examples of somebody that you just want to, I mean, obviously not naming names or whatever, but that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of diagnoses that are just a blanket of symptoms. There's a lot of IBS that we see, Hashimoto's, which is thyroid related. And we've seen multiple people with both of those diagnoses. They're able to completely reverse it and put it back into remission. And the reason is because we have epigenetics. And we know that genes can be turned on and off. And so let's say celiac, there's not many people that have the celiac gene, but those that do, even 1% are only the ones that express it. So how are a bunch of people running around with a celiac gene and it's not turned on? We can
It's
shut it
very
off.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that? So, I mean, is that just done through diet then? Or like, I mean, what methods do you use then to like, figure that out, but then to deal with it naturally?
Yeah. So we'll use a comprehensive lab work. That I have a huge geek inside of me. I love
Yeah.
biochemistry. I love looking at that. And that's really looking at all the systems. Because if you are nutrient deficient, it's going to show up in lab work too.
Okay.
The other thing that we use is biofeedback. And so that's really like a stress test. It's based on quantum physics and it allows your body to show like the priority of what's going on in your unique body.
Yeah. And so the unique body thing, like humans are, if you look at it generally speaking, humans are very similar. But when, to your point, why do only certain people then like get exposed to these rare diseases sometimes, or these, like, I mean, the journey that you went down, I have a personal friend right now that I'm hoping to have on the podcast here soon. He's also been down a journey, spent tens of thousands of dollars with independent like doctor visits and whatever, like trying to figure this stuff out. And it is crazy that it's like, well, why, if we're all sort of similar, then why does he have something that's making his body do weird things? And so if you don't dive into the lab work and look at like the genetic makeup, then how would you ever know? But why do you think that's like taboo though? Like, why do you think why do you think your business, shouldn't that be almost like the first approach?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's logical. Like as I start to walk people through this, one of the biggest things that I see in the office and I spend a lot of time educating people on is B12. Like the number one over-the-counter medication that people go and purchase is a proton pump inhibitor, which is used for heartburn and acid reflux. But when you don't have stomach acid, you literally cannot absorb B12. B12 is needed to detoxify for ATP production, which is your energy source of your cells. And so, when we start looking at labs and it's like, well, how did I get a buildup of toxins? And then you ask them questions like that. Like, are you taking a proton pump inhibitor? Do you have, and they're like, yeah, I have been for 12 years.
Gotcha.
You know?
Or does B12 naturally occur in foods that we eat?
Yeah. And it's a postbiotic of your microbiome. So there's two ways. And red meat is like the primary way that most Americans would get B12. But if you
that.
if you don't have stomach acid at a certain level, B12 will not absorb
Gotcha.
because it needs intrinsic factor. And intrinsic factor can only be released when your stomach acid hits a certain level.
That's interesting. So if people think, because I mean, isn't B12 commonly known as just something that can like help stimulate brain function and be an energy and activity? Is that fair? So a lot of people are probably taking it just thinking like, oh, it'll help me be more energetic.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
When in reality, and see, that's what I think for me, my biggest question is, the diet thing it interests me a lot. In the last couple of weeks, I've watched an insane amount of hours of podcasts, and like, I don't even like to read, but I started reading some stuff. And it is crazy to me. And even going through my own journey and the path that I went down, not one time. So when I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and it was an extremely severe case, because I'm the type that like, I don't listen to my body. I'm just like, I'll get over it in a couple of weeks. I just had a rib out last week and still worked out for like 5 days with that until I finally got it fixed. Like, I'm that type. And I think a lot of people are. But when I finally got diagnosed, it was extremely strange to me that it was just, and that was a case where they did have to like immediately take care of the symptoms, obviously, to get me back to like somewhat of normalcy. But there was never any discussion about how it got to that point at all, really, like in terms of like diet or, I don't know. It's just, they basically just told me, we don't know exactly what causes it, and you have to be on this medication the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And I was, 28 years old.
Yeah.
27, 28. And so it's just like, Jesus, like I just got to be on this med for the rest of my life, have no idea what caused it. And to your point, I have no idea of if I'm going to make it worse by continuing to do something else, like with my diet or whatever, that isn't good for it.
Right.
So.
And so you feel totally out of control. I mean, there's no way that you can take self-responsibility.
Yeah.
In your life, because nobody even put those two things together.
Right.
It's like we compartmentalize our health,
right.
that it has nothing to do with your lifestyle.
Exactly. And I mean, like I, for one, drink too much a lot. Last like 12 days, I think I've only had one beer. So I'm like,
Yay.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
good.
And it feels good. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it feels good to feel good, but, I'm not saying that like I'm going to quit forever, but it's just nice to like, again, try to hit the reset button, diet and obviously what you're putting into your body wise to figure out like, is there a state of normalcy that could be more optimal than like where I'm at right now? And is there, I mean, do you have people, so you have people that come into you that are obviously like knowingly sick or have something, but do you ever have people that come in and just say, hey, like, I'm just curious if there's a version of me that could be more optimal?
Yeah,
Like, is that a thing?
absolutely.
What's
And
that process look like?
we start with the same. So we would do the comprehensive panel because I tell everyone you need to know where you're trending, like where you're going, where you've
Yeah.
been. All of a sudden, in 5 years, if you don't feel good and I have no trends, like how will we even know what your baseline was when you felt awesome?
Right.
And so we do just comprehensive labs, look for those levels that are suboptimal that you could just make optimal, even though they don't have a disease dynamic going on. In the Western world, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is they wait till somebody's so far in a disease
Yeah.
state before they even diagnose it.
Well, you can't make money by not curing somebody who's too far gone though. And so like, I mean, like pharma can't, their pills won't work if somebody's not that sick, right? To cure the symptoms. So I think there's a lot of incentive not to have people just naturally be healthy, which is absurd.
And I don't even know that it's that. I have a lot of friends that are doctors. I love people from the Western world. It's two things. They were not educated and they're way too busy. And it's just
Yeah.
the way, or they weren't educated in like nutrition, right? You ask them, and it's all over the media right now. They have like
Yeah.
1 quarter, 1 semester of nutritional courses or classes. Nothing's really focused on lifestyle. I doubt they have a ton on like what supplements do what biochemically. A lot of their schooling is on pharmaceutical medication. And so that's the tool that they've been given.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. I don't necessarily, and I should make sure I'm clear on that. Like I think modern medicine, obviously, with what doctors and pharmacists and these people do, like is extremely important, obviously. And when people are in a dire need, like they need that. I guess from an educational standpoint for the common just person, it is a little bit bizarre that there's not more information out there or the information doesn't seem as popular to just naturally be healthy
Right.
for some reason.
Yeah. And, 1 in 10 Americans is diabetic. And the number
That's a
keeps
lot.
climbing,
Yeah.
And so that impacts literally everything. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, obesity, your ability to function, right? Like
Yeah.
your hormones.
I mean, when you have conversations with people, is it like, do you ever just sit down and just go through well, maybe I should start by saying, so you guys don't have dietitians on staff, right? That's like something that you can go through a health coach and do.
Yeah.
You can help people by like sort of farming those things out. But do you at least have like, is there a moment there where you have a conversation of just like, tell me what your daily diet is like, or like, tell me what,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that has to be alarming, I bet, some of those conversations that you have.
Yeah, and the awesome thing about our business is word of mouth has spread like wildfire.
Mhm.
So when people walk into our door, even if they're there for wellness or illness, they already know what they're walking into, right? Like they're so excited
Yeah.
to make the root cause changes, to get going, to live a healthier life and feel better. But we absolutely ask every single patient, like, what are you eating? How much are you sleeping? Do you
Yeah.
exercise? What's your lifestyle like?
Yeah.
Where did you grow up? Were you on a farm? Like, or were you around people that were spraying crops every day?
Mhm.
And then we have to start pulling in some of the genetic factors. And it's like, okay, if this is where you've been, and can your body handle that toxic load? Two people can be exposed to the exact same thing and have different genetics, and one can resolve it just fine. And the other person, they have genes that are working against them and can't get rid of it.
And I think that right there is what leads to well, I was doing that too, and it didn't happen to me, so therefore, like that is false. Like that's a false premise, and it's like
Yes.
it's crazy that it's that simple. Essentially, that some people just have genes that can't handle it, but
And we can measure that in lab work.
okay.
So we can look at like, what is your methylation capability? Are
Okay.
you methylating adequately?
Let's talk about methylation, because that seems like a really popular word that gets brought up a lot.
Yes.
And I like what just like you're explaining it to a third grader. What is methylation?
Yeah. So the first thing that you have to understand is methylation like touches 100 million biochemical processes in the body every day. So there's different categories. So like one category would be detoxification.
Okay.
So a lot of the substances that we are exposed to are fat soluble, and they have to be converted through methylation into a water soluble so we can get them out of the body.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other side of it is it also is used to build amazing things like glutathione or neurotransmitters. You need to be able to methylate to build things and create things in the body. And so if you can't detoxify, but you also can't create the good things,
Yeah.
then you end up becoming in like a world of hurt. And it's not like the body does that overnight. And I think that's where it's really hard. It's this slow, gradual process where you have a frog in boiling water and it's slowly just like turning up the dial. And it's not necessarily like you woke up one day like a microwave and didn't feel awesome.
So it's very hard in that because of that, then it's very hard to pinpoint like this is what caused it, or like
Yeah.
so that's why it's difficult, because it's a compounding effect over time. Is it fair to say that like methylation, and I'm just trying to like relate it to my not very intelligent brain, but is basically the process of you're taking like you're inputting this stuff in your body, and then methylation occurs when it makes it usable for your body. Like that is the process of your body making things usable from a nutrient aspect, like so that
Yeah,
you
or
can perform.
detoxification.
Okay.
Right? So again, like you're exposed to a toxin. We need the methylation system
hmm
to be able to be working. You need B6, you need folate, you need B12, you need all these cofactors in order for this system to turn on and to function.
Okay.
And so if you're exposed to this stuff and your body can't get rid of it, then what is it going to do? It's going to do the best it can with being toxic. And most of the time, that means it's going to encapsulate it in like a triglyceride. It's going to hide it. It's going to put it in joint tissue because it's the least circulated tissue in the body, or the area in the body. And so now we start to
arthritis and all
see
these things.
arthritis. Now we start to see that, cholesterol is on the rise. And so then people are like, well, my cholesterol is high. I should just take a statin. And it's like, no. Why is your cholesterol high? Like the
Yeah.
body doesn't just increase cholesterol for no reason.
And it's not just because you eat a couple eggs every morning for breakfast. Like,
No,
yeah.
your body makes so much more cholesterol than you could ever consume in a diet. So for me, it's very rarely that it would even be close to being part of the diet as an issue. It's a toxicity issue. And you need cholesterol to make every single sex hormone in the body. All of them. They start with cholesterol. So if you remove cholesterol, and now we know that hormones are what keep us, that's like longevity, right? That's what keeps us
things in balance and yeah.
Yes. I mean, men don't realize that with low testosterone, they're going to feel down and depressed. It impacts the synovial fluid in your joints. You're going to start feeling like you can't get up and move and exercise. And it takes a few minutes to like lubricate your joints and get moving.
I think that's an interesting thing too, because it sort of feels like it's probably just because of the stage of life I'm in. Like I don't like to get just generally biased about like my own surroundings, but you do see a lot of talk about like low T in men and whatever. I think that is also an interesting thing where it seems like it's always just like, let's test you for what levels you have and then boost it. But we really don't know, like, why did they get low naturally, or are you doing anything naturally to increase them, right? And there's a lot of talk right now about, I'm pretty sure atrazine is the big one, or like the most popular one. And I grew up actually in a farming community where, I mean, I personally sold like a lot of atrazine. I mean, we personally sprayed like acres and acres with atrazine in it. Like I personally mixed atrazine in the batches for the sprayer to come up and get loaded, right? So like I'm very familiar with that world. Atrazine, by the way, it works, right? But it's like, is it necessary? Are there other methods? And that's a whole nother conversation that I don't think we need to get into today. But there is a certain level of education that needs to happen in the agricultural world too, where it's just like, yeah, it works and it works well, but are there other methods? And let's at least explore that. But to that point though, that's one of the things I've heard that like naturally lowers testosterone in the male body and then is causing all these other things. Are there other like just ways through diet that people can sustain a better level of testosterone? Like
well,
men?
First I want to go back just a smidge because like the mechanism of the reason that it's lowering testosterone is because hormones are messenger molecules. They require receptor sites And then they basically communicate through like satellite dishes, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So if you can't methylate properly, your satellite dishes are all full of garbage. And so it doesn't work properly. You can't, in order to create testosterone, remember we started at cholesterol,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes to pregnenolone and DHEA. And then you have to be able to have sulfation to create DHEA-S. And then from there, you're going to start making your testosterone. But all of those processes require methylation. And so now if we have low B12 or we have no methylfolate or we've been eating enriched pasta that has synthetic folic acid and you have MTHFR, now all of a sudden you literally are not methylating. Your system is broken. And so then we go downstream and we're like, well, why isn't this being produced? And we have to
Right.
go all the way back up to the top. And then people are like, well, I'm on a statin. I'm like, okay, well, now we just take away the building block. It's like trying to build a house without any material. And so,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know,
it's like the first thing that I thought about when you said satellite dishes was sort of like when your garage door sensors are blocked by something,
yes.
and then your garage door won't shut. Like, so, I mean, if the methylation process is getting interrupted at some point through there because of enriched pasta, we need to talk about that because I am a pasta freak. Just recently bought. I don't even know if it's healthy. It's like a whole grain pasta that it didn't say enriched, so I bought it, but. I need to find a pasta that I can eat that is healthy-ish. I don't know if that exists or not, but
does.
is there?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have any off the top of your head that you want to shout out?
Well, I'm gluten-free. So I
Okay.
love the gluten-free pastas. And there's one, I want to say it starts with a C, Cabela maybe,
Okay.
at Whole Foods. It's in
Okay.
the frozen section, but they have like the noodles and they have raviolis and just all the good
Okay.
things that you often can't find that are gluten-free.
Yeah.
It's almond flour.
Okay.
So it's not even really a grain,
Yeah.
which is
So
awesome.
it's just not getting sprayed. What do they spray it with? That when things are in
Glyphosate.
when things are enriched, it's like folic acid or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like a preservative, but then it's just.
Well, in World War II, there was a lot of women that were having spina bifida in their pregnancy due to low folic acid. So they thought, well, let's just enrich all bread, cereals, and pasta with additional folic acid. But it's very synthetic.
Serious?
So when it's synthetic, your body has to be able to methylate to
Yeah,
turn
because
it
it's-
into the usable active form. And now we have 70% of people that don't methylate.
That's another conversation too, because I mean, with World War II, like obviously being some time ago, I mean, we're talking, like 80 years at this point.
Yeah.
It's wild that, and that's what I think, like the more you dive into some of this stuff, some of the practices, and I can relate it back to the farming thing. A lot of the practices that are used aren't out of ill intent. Like it's not, or maybe I shouldn't even say ill intent. It's just not even known that like what they're doing is necessarily causing like bad things to happen. And what I think is really interesting with the glyphosate thing is because that's another one that I mean, I've been around glyphosate my whole entire life, and most commonly known, obviously people know it as like Roundup and whatever. But I mean, Roundup Ready corn was a huge thing, obviously for me. When I was growing up, people were like begging for Roundup Ready sweet corn. Like, please let us spray glyphosate on our sweet corn. that we're gonna
No,
eat
they
today."
were?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It's seriously like that's how in the rural like farming community parts of the world, like that's how essentially like it was almost like hyperbole of like, I mean, Roundup, if you could spray Roundup, you can kill anything with Roundup, right? And especially like grass, any weeds like smaller than a Coke can or whatever, Roundup would kill it. And so like in the farming world, it was just like, this is like the hero chemical.
And they were begging for it.
It wanted Roundup Ready sweet corn that we could eat, that we could spray Roundup on all the time.
Oh my goodness. See, people ask me all the time when I'm not in Iowa, like,
Yeah.
where are you from? And they all think I grew up on a farm and know agriculture, and I absolutely don't. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and it is. And so, yeah, I mean, I can definitely be that person because there's a lot. I mean, I sold Pioneer seed and sold chemical with a guy for a while. And I'm actually going to have him on the podcast too, because what he's done in the farming world has been remarkable in the last like 3-4 years of ways to mitigate, like not using near as much nitrogen and different things that end up in our waters, of course. But there's a lot of ways to farm, specifically like row crop farm, that are less harmful and can still produce good results. And so, and honestly, it would even be someone that you could meet and like learn a little bit about both worlds. But anyway, back to the glyphosate thing though. The one thing that I think is absolutely ridiculous is the glyphosate that we were spraying on crops was happening early in the like early in the plant's life, right? So like chances of the glyphosate still existing on that food, and most of this these crops that were raised were for animal feed and different things. But it was really early in the plant's life, and chances of that glyphosate still existing were less common, I suppose. But the fact that they're spraying glyphosate on wheat right before harvest, essentially kill it, and then be able to harvest it at with less moisture in it is bizarre. Like, because that's right at the end of the plant's life, like when it's getting harvested.
It's insane. Like it makes me, I just met somebody on a plane and he was telling me that it was just approved in Canada, or it has been approved, that that's how they dry their crops out.
Yeah.
Is they're spraying it full
So
of
that
glyphosate. And then I'm like,
So when you harvest
That's
wheat,
crazy.
one of the biggest things, and I didn't grow up like in the wheat world, so I'm not like an expert on it. But when you harvest wheat, one of the most common things is if there's too much moisture in it, like it can mold,
Yeah.
and then obviously people like lose yields and whatever. So yeah, they deliberately, it's not even, the glyphosate isn't used to kill any weeds or anything. The plant is almost at full maturity, and in order to harvest it, I mean, to these people, it's like it's the greatest thing ever, because then it's very even. Like you don't have patches of some wheat being too wet to harvest and some being dry. You just spray it all with glyphosate,
Oh
it
my
dries it out, and
goodness.
then you harvest it. And it's like, okay, that is a thought, obviously, of making it more efficient to harvest and whatever. But like, good Lord, is there not a different practice that we can use that we're not eating those chemicals? It's just crazy.
It's literally, it like blows my mind.
Mhm.
So when people come into Innovative, that's like the first session, that's what we do is we sit down and I ask them, like, what's your diet? How did you grow up? Do you have trauma? Because emotional trauma actually plays a huge role in the body too. Did you grow up in Iowa? Like one of the number one things I ask every single person is, did you grow up on a farm? How close were you to like sprays and chemicals? And people that are over 50, 2 years ago, it was a husband and a wife, and they were just talking and like joking. And they're like, remember when we used to play with mercury and that was a thing? And I was like, wait, what? You guys literally played with mercury? And they're like, yeah, everyone in our generation did. So now I ask people like, hey, did you play with mercury? And they're like, yeah.
What, like just because of its like
Yeah.
how cool it looks or whatever?
I mean, I've never played with it. It was like banned for our thermometers. I
Yeah,
remember like having
right.
to throw all those away when we were young.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess it was like cornstarch, where it just like took on different elements. And so it was fun. And I can understand why it would be fun. But mercury will get into your bones. And
Well,
then
that's RFK's big push right now, is the fact that mercury's still used in, isn't it mercury that's still used in like shots? Why am I losing the word?
vaccines.
Vaccines. Jeez, oh Pete, how do
Yeah.
you forget that word right now in the political
All
landscape?
good.
But yeah, it's like the fact that it's still in there. It's like, holy smokes, because it
Yeah.
makes it more effective or whatever they claim.
But then get this. So mercury, it definitely takes methylation and chelation, which is a different process for heavy metals. And so it makes it harder to get out of the body. So when the body can't resolve it, it hides it. So a lot of times it will go inside of our bone. It goes to fat. And if
Mhm.
it's a child, there's not a lot of fat on kids. So it'll go straight to the brain.
Yeah.
And then when women are in menopause, we lose the tiniest bit of bone density. And so almost overnight, people can feel like, oh my goodness, I'm so anxious, like I'm going crazy. What happened? Like something just flipped. And it can be just that little bit of mercury was then re-exposed into the body.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like you're going crazy when you have heavy metal toxicity.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that's just like, why? Like, let's just not,
Yeah.
let's just not. So one of the things that was discussed was that vaccines in children, when they were doing tests X amount of time later, it wasn't showing up in the blood work, but where it was getting deposited in the brain. So once they figured that out, I mean, this had been happening for years, and it's like, oh, the mercury didn't leave. Like, mercury doesn't just leave your body. To your point, all this bad stuff just gets deposited.
If you can't methylate.
Yeah.
If you're not detoxifying. So now you look at okay, let's say kids. You look at kids. They're exposed to toxins, whether it's a vaccine or they live on a farm still and they're doing all these different things. And their body can't resolve it because their diet is literally garbage. The standard American diet, if you eat the standard American diet and you live the standard American lifestyle where you burn both ends of the candle at the same time, you don't rest, busy is a badge
Gas
of
station
honor.
lunches.
Yeah, you're guaranteed disease dynamic by 40. There's no way. I mean, you look at the statistics and we're on like a vertical climb of being the sickest country in the world. And so then people come to me and they're like, wait, how do I do this? I feel like I can't eat anything. I'm like, you literally can eat everything. You
Right.
just can't eat something that's been like pulverized and bleached and all these different
Yeah.
elements. And it's not like natural food anyways. That's frankenfood. It's like a
Yeah.
chemical soup.
Yeah. And it, some of this stuff. All right. So let's just, for like just a real world scenario. So,
Yeah.
and I'll just use myself as an example. Like, I don't know if I'm going to completely like turn my world upside down tomorrow or like with my diet. I've been working on it for the last like week and a half, which is not very long, right? Like it takes 21 days to make or break a habit or whatever. But I mean, I'm trying to at least be conscious of it and just not eat things that are like, for instance, the enriched pasta, right? Like big pasta lover, love pasta. But it's like, if I can just buy something, and I was talking to Kaylee, our marketing director, about this the other day, is like, to me, just at least doing enough homework to know that like this on the shelf is for sure bad. This on the shelf is at least better. Like, why would you not make that choice, right? But like without doing a little bit of homework or without talking to somebody like you and like diving into that process a little bit, it's like, how do you even know? Because this stuff is all marketed to us as if it's great.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, is there like if someone came into you and just gave you their diet and it's trash, like where would you start of like the most impactful things that you can do to improve just like immediately? Like, is there?
Yeah. So the most impactful things that people could do, well, like this is so important. And I feel like if you don't understand this concept, like you've missed the whole thing of what we do. Okay. So understanding your own biochemistry through that comprehensive panel is essential. Because one person's food is another person's poison. And what will happen is you're going to get on TikTok and you're going to think that you need all these supplements and that you have parasites and you have heavy metal toxicity and you don't methylate, and you're going to just be in the same hamster wheel. Polypharmacy is a thing, but polysupplementation is also a thing.
Very important.
So if you can understand like where your unique gaps are because of your genes, you can supplement with those nutrients because you're eating food that now has no nutrient value. So we know that. We know our farming practices literally produce crops that have no nutritional value. High calorie, no nutrients. So we can supplement with nutrients where that person's lacking. But then when I get to the diet portion of it, protein first, good quality protein. I think that they approved, and I don't spend a ton of time like validating this stuff because I don't need to. Like I already know it's real.
Right.
They don't care about our food industry.
Right.
But 21% of meat can now be pink slime at the grocery store, which is totally like a chemical. Like they can mix it in to the meat. So we personally buy our beef in bulk and keep it in the freezer.
Yeah.
So high quality protein, and then fruits and vegetables. Just really getting back to like the basics.
Jordan made me eat mixed vegetables last night for dinner, and I mean, I am not a vegetable person at all. But no, I don't like them. But yeah, seasonings, and I think just being an adult and like acquiring the taste. I mean, I grew up, but to your point of understanding history and let's tie this back to making sure that I guess you're down a path that is unique to you. Yeah. I mean, grew up eating a ton of cereal, processed like chicken nuggets and whatever. I've already told you that I've been exposed to about every chemical under the sun and growing up in agriculture. Emotional stress, I mean, that would take too long for this podcast. And then, it's just like all the things, right, that you essentially are exposed to and not eating vegetables. So like, there's obviously the things that you're deliberately doing that are, you're putting bad things into your body, but then I also wasn't putting many good things in.
Correct.
And so, but I still, and it's been a slow, like I've been trying to get better and better. And then Jordan's just finally like, you're going to have to eat vegetables because then you're setting a bad example for our kids. And I'm like, I am.
Yeah. So what we have at the clinic is we have a couple of different like resets. So we have our gut reset, and that is a medical grade protein powder. Has tons of nutrients in it, all of your B vitamins to turn on methylation pathways, open up detoxification pathways, anti-inflammatory components, reduce the inflammation in the gut. And then I'm sure you've heard of leaky gut. Mm-hmm. If you live in America and you've never intentionally tried to heal your gut lining, it's only a cell thick. It's like the thickness of a tomato skin, but it's a really important mucosal barrier that runs all the way through our gut lining. And so if you can build that back up and keep things in the gut that are supposed to stay in the gut, 3/4 of our immune system is right outside of that. So when we talk about autoimmune, that's our immune system that's getting pissed off. Every day you're eating frankenfood and your body's like, what is this? Like, do I need to go to war? Or like, is this a food? Are you trying, like, what are we trying to do with this? And so if we can get that mucosal barrier nice and strong again, then most people, like, food sensitivities go away. And so I would say we start people there. We want to start in the gut.
Really, regardless of whatever you have going on, that's probably just like a staple that should happen then.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
once a year. I
yeah.
actually do it twice a year. And then we have another detox that is really for heavy metals. Because, like I said, you need methylation with heavy metals, but then you also need chelation. They're like little claws that come in and really like get everything out.
Hmm.
That's harder to get rid of. And so I will do those a couple times a year because you're not going to be perfect.
So is it a thing where first I just want to say like I'm relating this to me obviously because it's real and it's an actual case to like validate essentially what you're saying, but so have known gut issues, and I've also always been like, I mean, since I was younger was the kid that if there was a cold or flu going around, I was going to get it. I had asthma, like respiratory issues. If I get a cold to this day, it attacks my chest, right? But it's like, I mean, in our kids being in school now, I mean, good Lord, you're exposed to everything.
Yeah.
But like since I've been in the gym, eating a little bit better, I also feel like I'm battling some of that stuff a little bit better too. And it's like, duh. But it's not, I don't know. It's insane to me how obvious it seems, or even when you say it the way you say it, it's like that just makes sense. But it's also bizarre at the same time that it's just not common practice, or it's just not common for most of us.
No, I mean, you go to the doctor and they have like 10 or 15 minutes to see you and like they need to get you in and out.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if I saw that many patients, I don't think I would mentally be fine
Right.
because it's too much. I mean, our brain only has so much capacity.
Well, it's like, do you smoke? Do you use chewing tobacco? How many drinks of alcohol do you have per week? And what's your height and weight? All right, doc will be in. And it's like, and again, I don't want to like harp on all doctors, and I think everybody has their place, but I mean, the process itself is, if you're not feeling well, like let's talk about, to your point, the root causes. So
Well, and those doctors are jumping ship because they don't like it either and they don't know what to do. They have $500,000 in debt when they get out of medical school. They had a heart of gold. They went in to help people, and now they're realizing they don't have the tools or the time or energy to be able to do what they need to do.
Right.
And so that's where functional medicine really starts to shine. But yeah, I mean, to your point, so like for you, I would say you're not going to flip everything up on its head.
Mhm.
Good quality oils too. People don't realize that
Synthetic.
every single cell in our body is made out of fat. It has a cell membrane that is fat. And so if you can do, oils are supposed to be an extract of food. Olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, and then you can keep those oils within their appropriate smoke point so that they don't turn rancid or toxic. Avocado oil, if you're heating things at a really high heat, like use that all day, every day.
Like seed oil, I've heard too, like the process in which that can get processed in the form that we consume it in is also like a lot of the processes that they go through when they smash it down and degum it and like that whole deal. A lot of the things that people are even probably buying that they think are healthy, like even that isn't healthy. And like you got to make sure you're buying the right, like
It's so bad. Like vegetable oil and canola oil are one molecule off of plastic.
Oh, Crisco is another thing that was huge when I was younger. I mean,
same.
we used that was my dad's favorite. Like he would fry everything in Crisco.
Yeah.
Butter flavored Crisco.
And remember like the microwave dinners that you can make and
It's
throw
basically like, kids cuisine.
I think I
cuisine or
lived
whatever.
on those.
Yeah,
Like I
I
think
did
that's
too.
why I got sick.
Yeah.
And so people ask me all the time, okay, Christy, how do you live like this? I can't do this. I'm not going to live like that.
Yeah, like it's too much. Like it's, yeah.
Okay, so I travel a lot. I'm at a lot of events. And so what do? You get there and you order protein. The fish isn't probably going to be wild caught. It's fine. It's better than, pasta or something
Right.
else. A steak, chicken, and then get order veggies. Find
Yeah.
one that you love. And even if you stick with that, like when you're out and about, like
Right.
the oil is always trash. It's high quality food. A lot of times it's really expensive, but it's still cooked in the same cheap oil at restaurants.
Mhm.
But that's where you can supplement with omegas. So back in the day, 100 years ago, omega-3 to inflammatory fat was a 1-to-1 ratio. We're 1 to 50 now.
Holy smokes.
So when I go and I'm eating at restaurants, I take more omega fish oils. I want those receptors to be full. I want my cells to be happy. Like the more that our body is starving for something, then the more that it's going to soak up the bad stuff like garbage. So like if I'm eating enriched pasta, I do have MTHFR.
Like it's going to fill the voids with something, and that
Yes.
something's going to be, yeah.
Yes. And so if you start to understand, okay, supplementation, like first thing in the morning, I have MTHFR, so I don't methylate well. And so I always take methylfolate. So my folate receptors aren't like sitting here starving for anything that can come by that looks remotely like it. They're getting like the best version of that. And then everything else will just probably leave.
Yeah, and it's fair to say even vitamins, if you think you're supplementing for the right thing, I mean, all vitamins aren't created equal either. Nature's Touch, I think it is like every single one of those is trash. I was listening to somebody on a podcast, and he's like, just if you do this for me, like just this one thing, look and see like which, because it's always in parentheses, right? Like this awful stuff.
Yes.
And it was the one. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like I was taking vitamins thinking that it was going to be like helpful for me, and not even that is helpful.
Yeah, so we have our own supplement line.
Okay.
And people that come into our office, I actually won't even work with them. So I have a wait list. And if they're going to take their own supplements, I can't really work with them. I tried. I've been doing this for 6 years, and the results just weren't there because the quality's not there. So like the people that manufacture ours, we have a scientist that looks at every single batch of raw material, and they make sure that it is what it is. And when they first got started at this manufacturing company, 82% of the materials they received were not what they said they were. Still today, it's between 50 and 40%, and they know that they have a scientist looking at it. So it's
And
like
a lot of
crazy.
times these things that aren't good that are in these things are at the like at the passable dose, if you will, or like the passable amount of like the percentage that can be in it.
Yeah.
And then, but those things compound and like they sit in your body. And that's what I think when you're talking earlier about where it gets stored in your joints and stuff is because people might be listening to this and they're just like, oh, that's all like taboo. And like, how would the food industry be able to get away with this? And the reality is because they push it to the limits. To your point, like it's a cost thing. It's a financial thing of if we can put this less expensive product into these things and pass it by. I mean, drug dealers do it. Drug dealers cut pure drugs with bad things. I mean, it's a real world example, right?
Yeah.
Of that's how you're more profitable is by putting things in that aren't pure anymore. And so, yeah, I think that's important and that's good. That I mean, because then you have a control too. Because if you guys are trying to do studies on people, you do the biochemistry look, the lab work, and then all of us and things just aren't jiving. It's like, well, you have too many variables that you're trying to account for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it hurts my brain. Like if
Yeah.
everybody's taking whatever they find wherever,
Yeah.
Target, and it's like, I love department stores. I spend a lot of money there, but that's not the right place to get high quality supplements from.
Right.
And so your money goes way further anyways. Yeah. So you take high quality supplements, you supplement our broken dynamic, but for you, like magnesium is a huge one. We know today that magnesium is really non-existent in our food. It's like one of the number one things that everyone across the board will say it's not there. And it's one of the reasons that people have asthma allergy is
Really?
magnesium. And that also does over 100 million biochemical processes. So if I were to take I'd have to take two supplements on a trip. If I could only pick two, I would pick my B complex that is methylated nutrients and vitamins in my Bs and magnesium. Asthma and allergy. I mean, you might just see like a huge difference just from that one thing. And so,
Well, allergy is another thing too. Like I commonly just take like a leg or whatever. Like, I mean, that's another thing that people are talking about now that, I mean, you can naturally, obviously, if magnesium is the root cause of it, then you might not even need to be taking $40 allergy pills.
and for allergies, like seasonal allergies, there's definitely things you can do, but a lot of that comes back to liver health, right? We live, if people are drinking too much, not sleeping enough, like eating crap food,
Yeah.
eating high fructose corn syrup, and almost every processed food, all of that goes straight to the liver. And so now we have non-alcoholic fatty liver, like completely on the rise. It's just, again, a vertical climb.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being personally attacked a little bit with some of this stuff, and I keep relating it back to me. I'm joking, obviously. Keep relating it back to me again just because it's relatable. But I mean, to that point too, one of the things that people commonly talk about, like if you go to a natural grocer or whatever, is like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive to eat healthy. And it's like, how expensive is it to not eat healthy though?
Yeah.
I mean, all of the things that we end up spending money on to cure these symptoms of stuff that is just naturally happening, but nobody ever puts any thought into that, so it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, really, when I got sick, I was willing to do anything, and I spent tens of thousands of dollars when I didn't feel well, and there was just really no answers. It's like what you
Were they
got.
just sort of telling you like autoimmune, can't fix it, deal with it?
Mine was even worse. My white count was 1, so they wanted me to go to, like, cancer doctors and different things, but, that was very scary, but the scarier part is I didn't feel like myself. So before I even got to the point that I knew that my white blood cell count was a 1,
Mhm.
I was gaining weight. I gained 100 pounds. My skin looked terrible. I have a photographic memory and I
Yeah.
couldn't remember anything. I just like everything about me. I was so tired. I'm so energetic. So
Yeah.
now at 37, I feel better than I've ever felt my whole life. And so it's so easy for me to just say no to stuff. Like gluten is not tempting to me because it literally is like poison in my body.
Because but it's back to your point earlier, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is poison to everybody. It's just that was what you're right. Is
Yeah.
that fair to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gluten for
Or at least
most
to the
people.
severity it was for you, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gluten for most people, it's because of how it's processed. Like the wheat, there's a mold aspect to it. There's so much glyphosate on it. People can go over to Europe and eat gluten and they absolutely can't eat it here.
Right.
So I feel like with every other food, it's different. But with gluten, I'm like, I think if you're having an inflammatory response, like get rid of gluten.
That's
Just
what a
try
lot
it.
of people talk about. Like if you go to Italy and eat pasta, you don't feel like trash immediately
Yeah.
afterwards. And it's like, well, their processes are different and how they get the pasta to your plate. But
Yeah.
um
And we have 1,800 chemicals that are allowed in the United States that they don't allow, even in
so
their country.
what was the, if you don't mind, just like with
Yeah.
your story then, what was like the and we can like time wise, you have to tell me I'm good.
I'm good.
But
Yeah.
what was like the aha moment that you would say, like, so I mean you're going down this road, you gained weight, you're like you're not feeling like yourself, sort of feeling lost and seeing now cancer doctors and stuff. Like where was the moment where you're like, oh, like this is what I need to be doing? Or was there lab work that finally came back that somebody told you like, hey, or like what was that?
Yeah.
Or maybe it was, I'm sure it was a process over time, but
So I was literally at rock bottom. Like when you feel that terrible and nobody can give you like a solid answer on what to change, it's probably the worst feeling ever. So I went to a chiropractor and he was the only person in this probably year-long journey that asked me about my diet. Nobody else had asked me one thing, and they were giving me antidepressant medication and Adderall to be a stimulant, and I wasn't sleeping at
Yeah.
night, but then I couldn't wake up in the morning and I was gaining weight in my skin. And so I was seeing all these different doctors, and he was the only one that was like, "What are you eating? Just can you cut gluten?" And I actually left there mad because I was like,
yeah,
what does
like
me eating bread
right.
literally have to do with anything else that I just told you?
Yeah.
But I was so desperate that I was like, I'm just going to try it. So I didn't eat bread. And within 3 days, and I tell everyone that comes into our clinic this, I need you to know internally and intuitively that you're moving in the right direction. Nobody else is going to know. I
Right.
just need you to know. And I'm looking for 1% by the next time I see you.
Yeah, because
And
a
I
lot of
knew.
people probably want to see like measurable or noticeable changes like immediately, or like because
Yeah.
we're an instant gratification society, so that would be tough. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily going to change your biochemistry on lab works like right away, but intuitively we just know if we handle stress a little better, if we got a better night's sleep, if we
Yeah.
showed up better. And so for me, like within 3 days, I was like, I literally know I'm moving in the right direction. I don't even know necessarily how because everything wasn't fixed. And so I went on to I have a business degree and then I had my 6 and 63. I was a financial planner at the time. And I jumped ship from all of that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to be a health coach.
Mhm.
So I went to health coaching and you learn a little bit. You learn about like polyphenols and nutrients and diets and all those different fun things, but it wasn't enough. Like I've always been a math and science person. And so I was like, I still like
Like
don't
just
fully
very
understand.
dated, like things have to like 2 and 2 have to make 4.
Yes.
Like yeah.
It's very science. I mean,
Yep.
it's literally black
Yep.
and white science.
Yep.
And so then I went on to functional medicine where I got it's a 3-year school. It's essentially like a master's, but it's a certification
Mhm.
in functional medicine. And in that process, again, like us having this conversation, it's so logical.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, all this makes sense. Everything that I was doing didn't make sense. And my symptoms did happen like right after I got a vaccination at 25. And I didn't even put that together till years
Mhm.
later down in my journey. But I did test myself for MTHFR and I do have that. And I know, I tell people this too, like your body, when you're getting good sleep and you're eating well and you're well rested and you're happy, like your ability to handle a toxic load you can just do it better.
Right.
I was a single mom.
Yeah.
I was working 100% commission job.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. And like all of that adds to stress. So then what's the compounding effect of all of this that you can't even put a number on because it's all intangible?
Yeah, you just well, I mean, yeah, that's an extremely I think that story probably resonates with so many more people than like people realize, and
Yeah.
and it's extremely easy to get stuck in a cycle where you just feel like I don't know, it's easy to attribute it to just things that like I need to be able to go to the doctor because I must have a single diagnosis that will like cure all of this.
Yeah.
When in reality, if you like to your point, I mean, one thing led to another, and then now you're on these other medications that are also giving you like adverse effects and different things that like that. When essentially it was like back to your point, the root problem wasn't being discussed.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and I lived in a moldy house, and I knew it was my first house as a starter home in Beaverdale. I wanted the character.
Yeah.
But with the character in these older homes comes oftentimes like too much moisture.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had no idea how like moisture in a home and mold. I mean,
The
mold.
basement that I lived in when I was in high school and middle school.
See?
Yeah.
And mold is the
Where
hardest
my bedroom was in.
thing to get rid of.
Yeah.
The hardest thing because it lives intracellular. And, I explain that to people too. Like biochemically, we can only test mostly extracellular things. There's a lot that happens inside the cell, and there's no science that's developed yet that we can measure that.
I heard something the other day that said like 10% of your body weight is mitochondria. Like, and just to think of that in terms of like how many cells you have too, like in your body and like the things that are happening inside of us right now.
Yeah.
And then to think that like if things aren't getting deposited out of them and then they're living like in intracell, like it's also bizarre to think about too.
Isn't it? It's mind blowing.
It is. But I like your point too of just how logical it does seem. And I think there's a lot of people out there that, by just going to see somebody like you and having that place of like, at least let's just start here.
Mm-hmm.
And then certainly there's things that need modern medicine, that need medications. Like certainly there's those things out there, but just having like a root place to start has to help people just feel better off the bat.
Yeah. I mean, and before we got started, we were both joking about water.
Yeah.
And so I tell people like you eat more and you breathe air and drink water more than you eat. And so even just having like high quality air, good quality water that's not full of microplastics, because the microplastics, the mechanism is they go and attack those receptor sites for your hormones and mucky up those satellite dishes.
Yeah, they're doing brain studies right now where there's just straight plastic like deposited in the brain. I mean, that's just something that is hard for me to wrap my head around. No pun intended, I guess. But I mean, just because of things that we're doing that are dumb. Like,
isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's so easy to get like a stainless steel water bottle.
Yeah.
And then have like a water filter at home.
Yeah.
That you maintain the filter on.
Right.
And it's not your refrigerator that you don't ever change and has mold.
The fluoride tap water thing too. That's something that is just whole conversation that's another thing that's just, we'll see with this new administration how soon or like, I don't know, RFK's definitely got some feelings about it for sure. But
yeah, I mean, I see people go the opposite way though, right? Like we don't want all of that crap in our water. But then when you take all of the fluoride and the chlorine and all those bad components out, now you've taken all the minerals out.
Mm-hmm.
And every single cell in our body is based on electricity and they all require minerals.
Yeah.
So I've also seen people that go so far the other way and are scared of everything that they've cleaned out their water so much and they didn't re-add minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And that all by itself will make you sick.
Exactly.
So
everything has to have a balance to it. The fluoride thing is very interesting to me. Just the fact that it, in areas where water was tested that had high levels of fluoride in it, that like people's IQs were just generally lower. Like those are studies where it's like, hey, if it's making us not as smart as we should be, that's a problem. So yeah, there does need to be a balance. And I think there's just so many, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And I think there's just a lot of things like in the dietary world or just common practice, like medical things that like we're just doing them because it's just what we know, or why change if it's, I don't know, but it is broken and it does need to be fixed, like a lot of that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, you have to choose your hard, right?
Yeah.
Like we're both entrepreneurs, business owners, not always easy.
Yeah.
But the same thing goes for your health. Like it's not always going to be the easiest choice. In fact, right now it's not, because we've normalized things that are so toxic.
Yeah.
Like I don't even understand how it's become so normal to live and eat the things that people are eating.
Yeah.
And then they look at me, and my friends tease me, and it's totally fine. Like it's all good humor, but it's like, how do you eat like a bird, or like, how do you eat like this? And
Right.
the
you go to a restaurant and order something healthy, people are like,
I know,
get out of here.
Yeah. Are you on a diet? I'm like, no.
Like that
This
is
is
my
how
diet.
I live.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
Yeah, and I mean I'll indulge, I'm not I'm sure I will. The thing with me that actually, like, so choose your heart is an interesting one. For instance, like I chewed tobacco for 17 years of my life, from the time I was 14 till I was 31, and I to your point of like being an entrepreneur, and I talk a lot about just in general, if you want to do something, you can do it. Like I'm a big mind over matter person. I just think if you set your mind to something and do it, like it might take more effort for others, but it's generally possible. And chewing was one of those things for me that it was like, I got to a certain point, and it's almost been 2 years now since I quit cold turkey, but it was one of those things for me that was like, if I talk about all this stuff all the time and like how I can basically do whatever I want, like why am I in the, like, why am I still chewing? Like, why do I need to have that? Like, and it was, it's an extremely addictive habit where I don't even know if it's actually the addiction itself, but it's just so habitual that you're relying on it. And it would get to the point where I'd get angry. Like, I mean, if I lost a can of chew or whatever, and like, I just needed to go to the gas station and get it. And I was like, this is bizarre to me. Like, I'm living a life that is dependent on something that I certainly don't need. And so that was like a challenge for me that like, I just wanted to get a win kind of. And I'm around it all the time, like drinking on a golf course, and guys have it. And I've never done a snooze since I quit. I've never done Zins, like anything like that. And for me, I use that example as how I want to sort of start approaching this diet thing, is like, I think I just want to like, just make it a win for me. Like, cause I think it's hard. And I like, generally speaking, I like to do challenging things, so I don't know. That's just the edge that I have to find in my own brain to like try to tackle it.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like make it a challenge.
Yeah.
I tell people to do that too. Like set a goal. If you're competitive, like make it a challenge. If you're a person of faith, like do it as a fast and prayer. Like find something that's bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
Because otherwise you're not going to. We often will treat other people better than we treat ourselves, and we neglect ourselves.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, everyone wants to fulfill their purpose and like have a good long life. Like longevity is the hot topic nowadays. How do we live these really long? You look at Brian Johnson and his $2 million protocol that he takes. Have you seen that? Okay.
What is it? What's that about?
There's a guy, his name's Brian Johnson, but he spends like $2 million a year biohacking his body.
Really?
To live a long life.
Oh, is that the dude that like he's just jacked and he's like, how old is he?
I don't remember his age. He's younger, but
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or our age.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah. I mean,
mine's not even, I think, this is interesting too, because I think like you do have to find something to adhere to.
Yeah.
And as stupid as that sounds, because it's like, it's your health. I mean, we should all take it seriously, but in reality, it is hard. Our society, it doesn't make it necessarily easy or natural for us to do so. But for me, it's less longevity than it is optimal. Like I want to see if there's a side of me or an existence that I can live in that is like where I can perform at a higher level than I do now. Like that's my, like, the general curiosity of that is enough for me right now. That in Jordan, my wife has been, she's been really regular in the gym for like 3 years, looks great, eats really good. And I used to even give her crap at home. Like, oh my God, you can eat a piece of bread. That's fine. But she's just kind of like in that, in that cycle. And I've seen that too. So she's a little bit of an inspo for me as well. And just that, like, you can make it your new normal. And I've seen her succeed with it. But I think I've just gotten to the point where it's like, I feel like I'm high performing now, but like, what if I, and then it's like, I'm curious enough.
Yeah, it'll get better.
Yeah,
exactly. It will.
Yeah,
the science is there.
Yeah. So how long have you been, in like, so since you decided to leave the financial investment world and sort of go down this path, how long have you been on that journey now?
10 years.
10 years.
And I've been seeing people for 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So, yeah.
And then, I mean, I'm sure, and you can touch on it a little bit if you want or not, but I'm sure you've just met some people along the way that have like similar stories and are now entrepreneurs like in the same field. And I mean, that's probably pretty cool too, to find commonality in that. But
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, there's like this huge geek inside of me, and it's just such a progressive world in functional medicine. We've only scraped the tip of the iceberg. And so when you can get into a room of other doctors that have done research in other areas or that, just have a different love, everybody kind of has the niche that they dial
yeah,
into and just go through case study. It's fun. I mean, I look at women's health and perimenopause, and I just feel like the studies that need to be done there because there's so much change, but also like thyroid medication. That's another one that we see all the time.
hmm
And when people are over supplemented with thyroid medication, it's often done, in my opinion, like incorrectly. So the number one thing that affects the thyroid is gluten. And then they make their medication for the thyroid out of gluten.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And so I'm like,
Jeez, oh, Pete.
like levothyroxine a lot of times has like gluten as one of the components in it.
Wow.
And so you don't really learn that anywhere other than getting into rooms with people that start to
Yeah.
teach you some of these things.
Like, hey, look what I found out the other day. Like,
Yeah.
and then you start having the conversation. Yeah.
And then you're like, what? So
Yeah, that's insane.
it's wild and it's fun.
Yeah, it is. And, and again, I want to make sure it's clear too that like, I mean, modern medicine and all the things that are common to a lot of people still has its place. It's still fine. But I think that it's just important. If anything, if anybody listening to this or watching like takes anything away, is just that be curious. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's my whole thing lately is just, and I'm not saying that like I'm going about it the right way necessarily, but just be curious.
Yeah.
Like start, there's plenty of apps out there that you can download on your phone that you can scan products and find out what's in them, where they very intelligently highlight like what is bad and what's not. That's a whole rabbit hole too. Like when you start, when you think
Yeah.
you're eating something healthy and it's just not.
Yeah.
But yeah, just be curious and reach out to people like you and see how they can be better.
Yeah.
you know?
Ask more questions. Like, don't
Yeah.
just settle for like my body's broken
Yeah.
and the only fix is a medication. And I'm
You
not
hear people all the time like, I'm not a morning person, or like, like
Yeah.
we come up with these stigmas about ourselves that are like false premises almost.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was never a morning person and I am now. Are you?
I love the morning. That's why I shoot every podcast in the morning, like from, I slept in today. I didn't wake up till like 5:45. Jordan was already at the gym, but but I ended up going to the gym later. But like I love to go to the gym in the morning. I hate working out at night. Like I love to go to the gym in the morning, get the juices flowing. All my important meetings, any important meeting I ever have, I always like to have before like 10 o'clock because I just feel like I'm firing on all cylinders. I just love mornings. Like that's when I
Same.
feel like I'm firing the most for sure.
Me too. I'm like the most dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love mornings as well.
The afternoons can get tough, and I think a lot of that probably comes down to, I mean, obviously we get exhausted mentally or physically by different things, but a lot of that comes down to diet and the way I was approaching my day too. I need to get better at eating breakfast. That's one thing that I'm terrible about, like making time to just eat something that is good.
Yeah.
But-
One of the things I've even noticed in lab work is if people are working out and they're not eating enough protein,
Mhm.
like within 40 minutes of that workout, that all by itself is such a stressor on the body. Like it can stress your adrenals out. And so when adrenal dysfunction starts, there's a whole downstream that plays into like your DHEA and your cortisol and testosterone and estrogen and progesterone for women. But definitely like having enough nutrients and macros
Yeah.
to fuel the body and to perform the tasks that you just asked it to perform.
Yeah. That's fair.
So I would definitely say that you should increase protein in the morning
hmm
and then continue that like throughout the day and see if your energy level doesn't just stabilize a little more.
Yeah, I've found for me, both of us obviously being busy, jumping around all over, different meetings or whatever, like beef sticks or hard boiled eggs, or because I think one of the things honestly that makes it a little bit easier for me from a diet standpoint, or should make it easier for me, is like I'm not a foodie. I don't eat for like pleasure of enjoying food. I in fact it's like a running joke in the office or anything that anybody that I'm associated with on a business. Like I don't have lunch meetings for business. Like I just won't. I have like they call it mesophonia or whatever, I think, where like chewing with their mouth open or whatever. Just a psycho about it. Like I can't handle it. So like if we're gonna sit down and have a business meeting, like
Yeah.
I won't do it over lunch. Like people ask me all the time, like, oh, you want to meet for lunch? Especially there are exceptions I will make, but if it's an intro meeting, if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, like I will refuse a lunch meeting. Like just no, we can have coffee, we can meet in the afternoon, have a tea or whatever it is that you want to do. I will not eat with you when I'm
I
trying to
kind of
learn.
love that. I might actually do that because I really don't like having lunch meetings. It's super awkward. I talk about
I'm-
like eating hygiene. Like you should be like very like relaxed and like mindful of your chewing and like intentional on your food. And it's just not that way over like a business meeting.
It's terrible.
It's
and you
like-
can't, if you are trying to have a serious business conversation,
so bad.
I'm thank God, like this is the first time I've ever had this conversation recorded. And people like, I mean, they make fun of me all the time and I don't really care, but obviously, because I still refuse meetings. But if you're trying to have an intentional and like you're consumed in the conversation, like how are you supposed to try eating at the same time?
No, you don't. I
And
just
then-
don't eat.
Yeah, and then by the time lunch meeting's over, you realize like 3/4 of your food you haven't even eaten yet. And then they're like, "Do you want a box?" And it's like, "Great, now I gotta try to eat this." I don't know. It's just it's I don't understand lunch meetings.
I'm glad that we're doing this because, okay, here's what I do. So
Okay.
I order intentionally like the thing that will save the best.
Oh,
And I don't
yeah.
eat.
Yeah, because how can you eat?
No, I don't. I can't.
Yeah.
Because I'm like there. I like to be very efficient. And so, like, if I'm taking an hour out of my day to like
Right.
go meet somebody, like, if it's not going to be efficient, I don't want to go.
Right. Yeah, just start refusing lunch meetings.
I'm
People will
gonna.
respond. Yeah.
And
Just
I don't
like-
drink coffee. So then I ask people for coffee to go to coffee. I'm very, very sensitive to caffeine.
Okay.
So I just can't. And then all the sugars and the stuff at the coffee shops, there's just
Mhm.
no way.
Yeah.
I'd rather eat cake if I was going to eat all that sugar. And so
That's fair. I'm a big
I-
coffee guy, but
I go there and I invite people to coffee and order, like, I buy like the $5 water
they're like,
because I want to support
Okay.
the business. You
Yeah.
know, I'm there.
yeah.
But
That's
Yeah.
fair. And I think, I mean, I usually just like, I call it out, because people will be like, oh, and I just tell them, I mean, the realtors that we work with, I mean, they were just laughing about it the other day because I did take a lunch meeting with them just because I knew them. But we talked about it at the lunch meeting. I was like, I don't know how people do this. And even at that meeting particularly, it got to a point where we were having a semi-serious conversation about potential future investments. And I was, no pun intended, extremely invested in the conversation because it's something I've been thinking about for a while. And again, it just like I wasn't like I looked down and I was like, oh my God, everybody else is almost done eating. And obviously I don't have a problem talking. But yeah, it's just like this is dumb.
just do that. Just if people take you out to eat, just get like a steak.
Just like and with no sides or anything.
Well, whatever will reheat that
Yeah.
you're going to eat later.
But sides typically don't. Like sides typically suck to reheat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know, I guess.
Brussels sprouts are fine. I'm sure that's your favorite vegetable.
I did have roasted Brussels sprouts one time. And especially like if flakes of them like with your steak too are really good. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe I should cut them up.
I do roasted and then I use a little sweet chili sauce.
Okay.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Potatoes.
They
Sweet
bloat me
potatoes.
though.
Okay.
Brussels sprouts do. But that's probably back to my like,
gut
you know,
issues.
yeah, I got
Yeah.
gut issues.
Yeah.
So I just need
it's
to
a lot
reset
of
it.
sulfur. They're any of the cruciferous vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower.
What are just while we're just kind of jonesing about it, I guess, like what are healthy, high protein snacks that you like for if you are on the road, if you have a hustle and bustle day running kids around or whatever? Just to
Yeah.
make sure you keep
I
that
would say
intake up.
I've almost like probably have an unhealthy complex now because it's like when you know too much, you almost wish that you didn't know. Not really.
That's
'cause it's my life,
No,
but
that's fair though. I get that.
I
think
so-
about that in the building world a lot. Like I can't walk into somebody's house without like nitpicking their trim and stuff. It's exhausting. But
Yeah. And so our medical food, like those protein powders, I
Mhm.
have like a bunch of shaker cups and I'll just throw 2 scoops in and then I always have my water. And so I will just like constitute it when I need something or like the
Yeah.
Chomps beef sticks, like grass-fed beef sticks.
Chomps, is that what you said?
Yeah, Chomps.
There's a golfer, there's a YouTube, Bryan Brothers, golf YouTube channels that's Brian, George Bryan, he's kind of a health freak, and he does a lot of research on the stuff that, like, he doesn't just accept any ads from people. And there's another one for electrolytes too that I can't remember what it is, but Chomps is one of the beef sticks that he does. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I love Chomps, and they come in different flavors, but I try like to eat my big meals. And so again, to your point, like if I really do need to eat something,
Yeah.
because I work out too. I
Hmm.
want to maintain muscle mass. And so having a higher protein diet is like essential. But I
Right.
try and eat just like meat and
Yeah,
chicken.
Jordan's big kick lately is like chicken sausage and and she eats it all the time for lunch at work, but it's really easy for her to warm up and it's healthy, I think.
Mhm.
And like cottage cheese, or she'll just do like throw some eggs in a thing in the morning and then like warm them up quick, but she's better at it than I am. But I like the Chomps is a good one because I love beef sticks and that's easy. Again, like I don't indulge in food for like pleasure. I stand and eat a lot. Like I do it for energy and I'm moving
It
on.
should be easier for you then. The people that I work
No,
with
it
that are the
should.
hardest are the ones that like need variety and
Like,
they
oh my
can't eat
God,
the
I
same
love,
thing
yeah,
over and no
yeah,
leftovers. And like
yeah.
I can eat the same thing. There was a couple weeks when I was so busy. I was in creative mode and like I just had no energy to extend to like cooking. And so I made like 2 pounds of Asian beef. So just ground beef and
Hmm.
then like ginger, garlic, and coconut aminos. It's like a teriyaki substitute that doesn't have gluten,
Okay.
and then a little bit of sweet chili sauce. And I would like literally eat
Just eat
that
that.
and
Yeah,
a
I
little
would
bit of
too.
rice,
Yeah,
but every day. My family was like, "Wait, are you eating beef and rice again?" I'm like,
yeah,
yes, I am.
yeah.
Because it's so easy and I feel good.
I used to when I was 25 and I was working out like sometimes twice a day and I was trying to see like essentially how many calories I could like push myself to because I've always been like smaller framed and I was like, I don't know, let's see if I can put some weight on. I was used to get like people would tell me I got a tapeworm or whatever, high metabolism, but I would just do brown chicken, ground beef, and long grain brown rice.
Yeah.
And but then I would mix ketchup and barbecue sauce in with it, which is probably disgusting to a lot of people. High in sugar, probably not the healthiest as far as the ketchup and barbecue sauce go. And I would just eat that. Like I would eat it 2 meals a day. Because at that time I was getting up and working out at like 4:30 in the morning. So by 10 o'clock I'd be starving. If I eat a little bit of something for breakfast, maybe have some almonds for a snack or something, then I'd eat that at like 10 o'clock and then at like 2:30, and then I would have dinner.
Yeah. I
But
like raw nuts too. You just have to watch out for like nuts because they'll roast them in vegetable oil.
really,
So they'll soak them and roast them.
like the Blue
Costco.
Diamond almonds, are those good?
Yeah, no, you have to read the ingredients. So
Yeah.
like it should not say vegetable oil on there. Like they shouldn't
Okay.
be soaking them in oil. So
Right.
dry roasted from Costco, I'll get theirs. I love raw cashews and like I'll make a little trail mix. If I could eat dairy, dairy has been one of the foods that doesn't love me back.
Yeah.
But like the Greek yogurt and
See,
protein powders.
gosh, like Greek yogurt and peanut butter. And I understand peanut butter is another one of those things you got to be careful with, but Greek yogurt and peanut butter with apples, I could eat that. That's what I honestly should eat for breakfast, maybe. I don't know.
Greek yogurt and then PB2 powder and like
Okay.
a grass-fed vanilla whey is what
Oh,
I'll mix together. And it's like 60 grams of protein. And you
holy
can dip
smokes.
apples in it.
Does it matter, like, so for the breakfast thing and back to that, like making sure you're basically not starving yourself after working out, is that an okay protein to consume like right after that and your body can use it, or does it need to
Yeah.
have more like substance? Like, do I need to have steak and eggs or whatever?
No, it's totally fine. If your
I'm doing that
body
for
is
sure.
fine with dairy,
Yeah.
it would be totally fine.
Because you can just like pre-mix that stuff up, have some in a container or whatever, and then just boom.
Yeah, we have grass-fed whey that's part of ours. I'll bring you a container.
You're in your supplement line?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
really
need to
good.
come over there and do the whole test and everything, honestly.
It's clean because whey can be chemically extracted. And so
Okay.
they can use a lot of chemicals to create the whey protein.
Yeah,
So
gotcha.
ours is grass-fed cows. And then it's a slow process. So we don't use any chemicals.
Interesting.
So it's just a higher quality protein powder. And then you could throw in a few berries. The other thing that you could do is we have fruits and greens. It tastes pretty much like Kool-Aid.
Really?
And it's greens and fruits because you need antioxidants. So if you're not eating that
Well,
stuff,
and yeah, and not so I love fruit. Is too much fruit bad? I mean, there's a lot of sugars in a lot of
Yeah.
fruit, but
I
like,
mean,
I mean, if I like an apple a day is obviously like
no,
the old
it's fine.
adage, but like that's fine. But that would be good for me on the vegetable side of things because I'm not probably getting like the iron and zinc and whatever. But
Yeah, like in functional medicine school, one of our classes, we learned that broccoli has over 500 nutrients. And as like science is today, we only know how to manufacture 30. So and I don't even think that we know everything that's in our food, like all the mechanisms
yeah,
that it heals us, that we just are completely unaware of.
in natural food, like
Like
there's probably
broccoli.
benefits that we wouldn't even know of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so nothing really replaces like a healthy diet. Like you can't work out a crap diet.
Yeah.
People, you know what I mean? Like you see that
No,
all the
that's a really
time.
good point. We're gonna clip that for sure, Kaylee. That is a really good point. Like nutrition's so important, and you can work your ass off in the gym, but like if you're not giving and that was me. Like that was me for a long time, and I would get frustrated with, not like mere results necessarily, but it's just like, gosh, that's a lot of work to not get a lot back or to necessarily feel better. But
Yeah. I mean, but then your point, like asking, am I eating too much fruit?
yeah,
Somebody that's not insulin resistant. So on our comprehensive panel, one of the markers is fasting insulin. So if your fasting insulin is not elevated, which insulin should only go up when you have food present, right? So if you've been fasting for 8 hours, your insulin should not be high.
okay,
Then you're going to metabolize like a banana, an apple, like a high glycemic fruit way differently than somebody that is already like pre-diabetic or diabetic.
okay,
Their body is already shut down. It's not using glucose. But my trainer always tells me within like 40 minutes of working out, you need a carb like a banana or something, or barbecue sauce and chicken. I mean, that's one of the things that she tells me to do. You need a high carb because that pulls all the protein into the muscle. So she wants me to eat
Go
like
get
a mango or banana or
yeah.
barbecue sauce and then low fat and high protein. So like your chicken or
And see that you said it and it's 100% true is it should be easier for me because like again also with like being weird about food, I mean I could eat barbecue sauce and chicken at 8 o'clock in the morning and it would not bother me. Like I'm not weird about like what time I love breakfast for dinner. Like it's just food is food to me and then I'm moving on. I don't
yeah.
know. So,
Like there's times I get the safe catch tuna where they measure each can for like a certain mercury level.
oh,
But I love eating like tuna and almond crackers. I'll do
mhm,
that for breakfast.
interesting.
And like that's a lot of my snacks too. It's 42 grams of protein in one can. And I'll just eat that with a spoon.
Yeah, I need to definitely my first takeaway out of this whole thing for immediate implementation is that the whey and then the Greek yogurt with and what is that? What is the mix? Is it like a peanut butter like
PB2.
yeah, what is that?
So PB2 is just there's no fat. It's like a powder and it's peanut butter. So it's no fat and it's
Probably
dry.
no mold as well.
I mean, who knows how
There
they
could be mold in it.
yeah. I've never
A
really
little bit of
researched
pencil.
PB2 too much. It's
Yeah.
just my kids like chocolate shakes,
Mhm.
chocolate peanut butter shakes.
Yeah.
And so I put a little PB2 in there with
Yeah.
their shake, a little banana,
A little flavoring.
and
Yeah.
then I put on the top like real peanut butter.
Yeah.
And I eat peanut butter.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I
you
eat
can't
gobs of peanut butter. Like I love peanut butter.
You do?
Yeah. Like I mean I like peanut butter on like there's burgers that you can get like a fried egg and put peanut butter on it. Like I love peanut butter there. Again, like I mean it's I'll like cut up 2 apples and just like a big thing of peanut butter with Greek yogurt and just like gobs of it. Like
Like
I'm
what kind of peanut butter are you eating though?
Jif. It's bad, isn't
No,
it?
we're getting rid of that.
See?
Okay, that's your one change. All of that is like the toxic oil. Like it's probably the number one ingredient. I haven't looked at the back of Jif, but you should just have like peanuts and salt.
Well,
And
I'm gonna go to Natural Grocer down here in Hickman. I've heard Kaylee was there the other day. Said it's
Costco.
yeah. Costco has it all too.
Yeah, Costco.
Do they just have like a natural food section?
No, we should just.
Yeah.
I need to go to Costco and like have somebody film me
Yeah.
because almost all of my food I get from Costco, but they have natural peanut butter and like 2 huge jars are the same price as like a tiny one at a
We'll
different
just we'll
store.
just have Alex we'll just have Alex follow us and we'll just do like a walking
Can we?
podcast.
I want to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Like
Well, because I
siete
mean
wraps.
it's like this is stuff that is just like for real. I mean, it's like sitting over here saying like I love to eat peanut butter and it's like, oh, it's high in protein, but it's like, yeah, but you're just putting other toxins
That's not
in your
even
body.
protein. I wouldn't even consider it protein.
Garbage.
It's like
I'm
such
done with it
garbage. It's
today.
trash. It's like hurting all of your cells.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even taste that different, especially if you're mixing it into like a Greek yogurt or something else, or like making a shake
Yeah.
or a smoothie. Like you absolutely cannot tell the difference.
That's
Rice
interesting.
cakes and peanut butter. Love that.
I love, yeah. I thought I was not, I was like, what are we talking about? But Jordan started buying those. There's chocolate flavored ones that,
Yeah.
I love them. Yeah. I mean,
So
I was
good.
eating them with Jif peanut butter, but I can substitute that. But
Like I said, that's like the easiest swap. It really,
Yeah.
like the first time you're going to be like, I like Jif better because it probably has MSG and like it comes from the big companies where they put things in there that make you
right,
like addicted to it.
right. The
But when you
flavoring,
get
yeah,
away from that, then it's like peanuts and salt. You
yeah.
have to mix your first peanut butter. That's the only inconvenience.
That's fine. That's
No,
interesting.
you would be like the easiest person. You need to come
Yeah.
in because if you can eat the same things over and over and not have like a variety and just get into a plan even for 30 days,
Yeah.
you're going to feel like night and day different.
Well, I mean, essentially what we need to do is we'll just document it, all of it. We'll just, we can document like the visit to the office, doing the lab work, like not physically doing the lab work or whatever, but we can document like going over those results if you want. Like
Yeah.
you just literally use me as a case study and
Yeah.
then we'll just like go talk about foods that are easy to implement. Cause that's another thing that I think a lot of people are just sort of intimidated by, myself included, like knowing where to start. And that's why I was asking you some of these simple things, right? Especially for breakfast, knowing that that's one of my weaknesses is you're sort of intimidated by knowing like just where to start with some simple things. And a lot of times when people, it's just human nature that like if you're sort of intimidated by something that you don't have enough knowledge about or whatever, it's easy just to shy away from it, you know, and not like dive into it. So I think if we're just a little bit more informed, it would make that next hurdle or that next step easier. But
Well, and now that I know you so much better, like you're a go, go, go.
yeah,
Like I, as a practitioner, would worry about your adrenals. And so anything that you could do to reduce stress on your body,
yeah,
like immediately after working out, like you just shredded your muscles and they
Mhm.
need amino acids to be built back up. So like immediately giving yourself like an amino acid drink or like a high protein right away, like
Okay.
not making your body wait. Like, dude,
Yeah.
he just killed us. And like, when is he going to feed us?
Right. That's fair.
And it like people don't realize that even those little things in your lifestyle can become so stressful on the body. Cause then all of a sudden your body's like, are we dying? Like, are we running from a bear? And you're like, no, the house just isn't finished and we're like past the deadline.
Yeah.
And so if you're fueling it and the body's happy, because our mind doesn't know. And that fight or flight really is that like primal instinct of every time that we have that cortisol response, regardless of whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, the body's like, we're dead. We're running from a bear.
So I'm essentially because I'm not feeling my cells back up with what they need after working out, I'm causing myself to be like inherently more stressed for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, lifting heavy weight is so good for you, but it's also self-induced injury. Like
Yeah.
you're literally shredding your muscles so the body can build them up bigger, right?
Yeah.
So you just created like a micro injury. And the
Yeah.
only way to heal it is through amino acids. And so if you're not giving your body the ability to like build itself, like you basically just like hurt yourself and we're like, sorry, I have like other stuff to do. And we're gonna do it every day.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Every
And
single
that's the
day.
thing. It's a compounding effect because it's not like you're just doing it once a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
And so then you go throughout the day and now you have other stressors and you have kids and a wife and a business and all these things. And your body needs those nutrients now not to just go to one place.
Yeah.
Now it needs them for like 50 other chemical processes in the body.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Well, and I think too, like, you know, people that hear about this, and again, like it just seems logical, right? And a lot of it obviously is, but you know, people are like, oh, like that one hack is gonna like just change your life, and it really just it comes back to just all these little things, and just like
Yeah.
that's a simple thing. And then if you do, you know, if you're also getting the appropriate amount of sleep, and just these are all things that you can just control in your daily life. That nothing has to necessarily be super profound, but just yeah,
there's two things that like you can never ever take a supplement for really to heal. It's stress and sleep.
yeah, that
Like-
just has to be done. Yeah,
You can support a stressful lifestyle for a little bit. Like we have adrenal support, we can do that. We have glandulars that you can take, and that's fine. But if you live like that for a long time, you
Right.
will hit burnout.
yeah, because I think there's even studies that show if you are sleep deprived, there's an element like that next day where you can perform at like a higher level for a little bit. And it's just, I think it's just because your body is like, you know, in hyperactive mode, because it's like, fuck, trying to figure out what's going on. But obviously that's not sustainable. And if what we're really trying to talk about is obviously sustainability and being healthy for a long time. But
Yeah, and people don't need to be scared of melatonin. Like if you take melatonin, your body doesn't stop production. That's a myth.
okay.
You know, so if you can't get your mind to shut off just to create a healthy habit like 21 days,
Yeah.
like a little bit of melatonin, you don't need a lot. Start with a little, see what your body does with it, and like just go to bed.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes my brain will then want to just like start going crazy. I get excited about things that I'm building or creating or doing, and like everyone goes to bed, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I can do like it's my free time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to shut it off at night. And I think, you know, if you're living in an unhealthy way, it's like Wolf of Wall Street style, right? Well, like there's that, like I was taking Quaaludes to get, and then I was like, and then I was on Adderall and then Coke, and like that's obviously hyperbole, but there's a lot of reality to that though too. Is you know, if you drink with the guys, or you're networking like I often do, and you have a few drinks, and then like you go to then you get poor quality of sleep, and then the next morning you think you got to substitute your lack of energy obviously with coffee, and then you drink 30 ounces of coffee to get reamped again, and then you're high on caffeine, and then you're eating unhealthy during the day, and then you go have some drinks again, and it's like, holy smokes, it does not take long to get into a vicious cycle at all.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you got it. See, you know.
Yeah. I know, but then like so I'm the type of person where and I think a lot of people are probably self-aware enough, but like make some changes, dude, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we definitely need to do that though. We'll get
So
in,
fun.
we'll document the process a little bit, clip it up, like just to make it make sense, like in short form, and that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it's fun for people to actually, you learn best through experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you can come in, you can meet our nurse practitioner. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Go through all the different line items. And then you know for your unique body,
Yeah.
like what it is. I hate seeing people cut things out that are stressful. You know, like I really enjoy this and cutting it out because they see something on TikTok.
Right.
And it's like, wait.
Or
It's
I need to go
probably fine.
buy this vitamin because this guy said,
Yeah.
I have a personal friend too that hopefully we can get you guys introduced, that just is sort of still like lost. Like he's still on his journey of trying to figure out what's going on. And again, hopefully we can get him on the podcast here soon, because I want to hear in detail like the steps that he's gone through and essentially found failure. And he's buddied up with, like, there's a guy from Baltimore that he mentioned that's kind of been down the same path. And, you know, he's connected with different people around the country, essentially trying to figure out, hey, what's going on? And in his case, he's a hyperactive dude, runs like marathon type runs, in extremely like good physical shape, but tired a lot, like just has weird things going on that are related to like ALS and just like there's just weird things with his body that like periodically come and go.
So we didn't really talk a lot about like what I actually do at the office,
Mhm.
the quantum physics,
Okay.
but the biofeedback, like that's where that really shines.
Okay.
Because somebody like him that has maybe tried a lot of things, it creates a custom homeopathic based on your body, and it essentially energizes your cells. So it gives your cells the cellular energy that they need in order to then create homeostasis from within.
Gotcha.
And it will tell you, like, is it chemicals? Is it parasites? Is it adrenals? Is it like
The study, or the
scan?
test.
Yeah.
Oh, the scan.
Takes 2 seconds. Like you hold
Yeah.
something and then I test the acupoints of your hand, and they all are connected to acupuncture meridians in the body. And you can really see, but somebody like him, my brain immediately goes to like, is he fueling his cells enough? Iron as well can be
Mhm.
very inflammatory, but without enough, you feel like trash.
Yeah.
You know, or like chemical or methylation, like, is he not detoxifying
Right.
efficiently?
Yeah. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it would, again, I guess get to the basics of it, like do the tests, check the numbers out, and
Yeah.
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 I mean, you got to have some fun with that then if you sort of geek out on the data of that. Like I'm the same way when it comes to like efficiency in business. Like I like knowing if we budgeted for this, it came in at this, like what is that percentage difference? And just like going through those tests are, you know, and it's sort of similar or relatable.
Yeah.
But that would, I mean, I'm sure you get some people that you're just like, you know, like, oh my gosh, it's right here. Like it's on paper. Like
Yeah.
looking at those numbers has to be cool.
Yeah. For me, I mean, it happens like over and over every day.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really is my gifting. Like, to be able to listen to somebody and like just kind of look at them and figure out like how they're living their life
Yeah.
and then how this is equaling a different biochemical process than what they desire
Yeah.
and making some of those changes. But yeah, anyone that's listening, like sleep,
Mm-hmm.
stress management, and real food.
Yeah. Pretty simple stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody, just before we end here, is there anybody in this, I would say, market, like, so it could be just in the Midwest or maybe someone in Des Moines even, that you've sort of like, that's been studying this stuff for a long time, that you would like, I don't know, not that would be like maybe a mentor, but somebody you feel like you can go to that's like on the same wavelength as you as far as like diving into this stuff? Because
Yeah, I found that through school,
Okay.
really. Because, we go through a lot of cases and it's a lot of application of cases. And so you become really close, when you're first starting and you
Yeah.
feel like you have imposter syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, every other doctor, everyone knows everything more than me. I know nothing.
Right.
And so I was really, really nervous those first couple years, but you start to recognize they're not getting answers. So I have
Mhm.
nothing to lose.
Mhm.
Like they've already tried and exhausted all doctors that they've been to
Yeah.
and they still don't feel well. And so I would turn back into like my huddle groups
Mhm.
that I'm still really close to.
Well, because I probably articulated that terribly, but the thing that I've heard in having discussions with people like leading up to this podcast and just as I've gone down the rabbit hole of the whole health thing is I've heard that like there's just not many people in this area. Like it's very much like a coastal thing and like larger population cities and just in the Midwest, it's not like a popular topic. Is
Yeah.
that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the people that have started to study it, what I find is people have like certain niche areas. So like
Mhm.
I have one doctor that I would go to that really specializes in like metabolic and hormones,
Okay.
but doesn't necessarily know everything about
And
cardiovascular,
that's
even though they're
fair.
connected.
Yeah.
So you just start to find, and it's just a natural gravitation as a practitioner to like what you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's their style. So
Well, and I think people probably too can get discouraged by seeing some of these, because there are guys on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, that are like, do this one thing, take this one supplement, your cells, blah blah blah, right? And obviously, like, there's jokers like that in every industry, but
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I hope that like people out there don't see these things and then just get skeptical of the entire industry just because of that, right? Like,
I mean, and they do. And there's a lot of people that, like, sadly, so my belief is I don't necessarily want the FDA to be in, and I don't want everything to go through like a government licensing because then their hand is in everything that they don't know much about,
and
in
my
my
personal
opinion.
belief on that is pretty much whatever the government touches goes to shit. So
Yeah. So it's like the FDA doesn't regulate any supplements, and there's no regulation on functional medicine right now. And so people can go and take a weekend course and
right.
get functional medicine certification. And I
Right.
spent 3.5 years. And so then they say like, oh, I'm maybe they are an MD or DO or a nurse practitioner or PA or whatever. Well, I have 3 nurse practitioners that work at Innovative Wellness Center. And I have friends that are doctors and they all consistently say, Christy, we've learned none of this.
Right.
None of it.
Right.
And so then when you have somebody even that has those strong credentials behind their name and they're like, well, I do functional medicine now. When I start to ask some of those questions, it's like, oh, where did you learn functional medicine?
Right.
Well, I went to Omaha for a weekend, or I took this online course that really doesn't die. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's
Yeah.
just not everything isn't created equal. And I would say that's the biggest issue on the holistic side
Yeah.
is as much as I hate like what the insurance companies dictate and how they put everything together, it creates this continuity from place to place and how
Right.
people are treating. And then when you get to the holistic side, it can be like one person does it this way and another person does it this way and somebody else does it this way. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's tough because we need to all be moving together and as a unit.
And I think, yeah, every industry sort of can relate to that as well. I mean, it would be the same as like, if there was a commercial contractor out there that specialized in just say building hospitals that are these big block concrete buildings and whatever, and then just showed up in the home building industry and is like, I'm now an expert in building homes. It's like, you understand construction. Like there's construction principles that surely apply to both, but it is 2 different entities. Right. And
Yeah.
so, just again, in my dumb way to compare it, but yeah, there's a lot of reality to that. I also just think that some of that is it's relying on the homework that somebody's willing to do, right? And I think by having these long form conversations like this, where it's not just seeing a clip of somebody say this is what you need to do and then like trusting that person, is find out really who you're going to see, what they're all about, and kind of going from there. And that's why I think these kind of conversations on podcasts are important.
Yeah, and making sure you align with them.
Yeah.
Because all personalities aren't going to mesh well, you know? So finding like practitioners that you can trust and that you like. For sure. Good.
All right. Well, our follow-up to this is definitely going to be that video series. And I don't know when we start, but hopefully it's soon.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.